to the second episode of Brent Locked In, a series exploring creative and wonderful personalities that are made here in Northwest London, in Brent. My name is Moeed Majeed. I'm a TV and radio host and a podcast creator. Born and bred here in Brent, and I can't think of anywhere else better to be right now. On the second episode, we are joined by a columnist, a podcast content creator, and an international award-winning author, Nikesh. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you just give us a little intro into you and what you do?
I'm an author, so I've written 3 novels for adults. Coconut Limited, which is set in Brent, the Meat Space, The One Who Wrote Destiny, and I've written 2 books for teenagers, Run Riot and The Boxer, and I edited a collection of essays called The Good Immigrant, and co-edited its follow-up collection, The Good Immigrant USA. I'm a screenwriter as well. I wrote an award-winning short film called 2 Doses that starred Himesh Patel. So yeah, that's me.
Please, yeah, obviously a big catalogue of amazing things you've been doing, but you know, this series kind of like investigates what it was like for you, like growing up where you grew up and how you came to like be the success that you are today, because I'm sure that's stuff people really want to hear about and how it's kind of like shaped the journey you've gone on. Well, the first question is like, how are you finding lockdown so far at home?
It's mostly boring, I think, but I've got 2 young kids, and
They keep you on your toes.
well, yeah, and also like it's really hard to homeschool, you know, and it's really hard to homeschool and write and answer emails and do multiple meetings and stay healthy and all the rest of it. You know, every day I have to always remind myself at least once a day that we have the privilege of being able to lock ourselves down, and we have the privilege of being able to self-isolate. We have the privilege of our health at the moment. And so those are kind of getting me through the darker moments where I'm just like, I just want to bust loose.
Are your kids in primary school? So what, are you teaching them like the syllabus that they're meant to be learning in school?
One's 3 and one's 5. The 5-year-old. It's just, you know, it's very hard to like do formal teaching with one while the other one is just happy playing, because that's what she would have been doing in nursery. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we know you kind of grew up in there like Northwest Harrow, Wembley area. How did your parents end up kind of like residing there? Do you know that?
No.
Fair enough.
Do you know what it was? Like, every now and then I hear stories from people who came over in the 60s. And, you know, obviously people who were immigrating tended to end up living where like the labor offices, where the work offices were. So that's why you had like lots of like South Asians in like Brent and also in Tooting, and you have lots of people from the Black and Caribbean communities in like South London, because the labor offices that kind of helped bring them over, I think, were like in those areas. I may have got that wrong, but you know, but also at the same time I'd hear stories like, you know, this when our parents came over in the 60s and 70s, there wasn't Gumtree, there wasn't like findahousemate.com, and they were brown and they were black, and you know, not all people who wanted lodgers wanted brown and black people.
Yeah.
So they ended up in random places. Like my uncle, my mama, he came over in 62. He was like the first person from either side of my family to come over. And my uncle couldn't find a lodging in London that accepted brown people, and he ended up in Keighley of all places.
I don't even know where that is. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Like, well, it's up north. It's in Yorkshire, and I think one of the reasons he ended up there was because like you could only really go on the information that you had, and like because like extended members of the family ended up working in factories in like Huddersfield and Bradford and stuff, and they would know where those lodgings were. But the plan was always for them to move to London. When my dad came over, the lodging he found was in Wembley. It was like just round the corner from from Box Park, but like, yeah, it was like opposite Wembley Arena, like one of those streets, and he ended up there for a bit. And then then I was born in a house in North Wembley in 1980, and then we moved to Pinner. And then I grew up in Pinner, but like spent all of my social time in Harrow.
you said you were born in North Wembley, right? How old were you until you moved then? And like, do you have any early memories of that area, or was it more so like when you were in Pinner, you kind of recall like the stuff you did when you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, Pinner's still Brent, man.
I think so.
Just about, yeah, because it's still in like the
It's on
London
the
Borough.
cusp, yeah. It's the capital
Um,
area.
no, I remember that house really well because I've got this really weird like repeated memory, this like fragmentary memory that would just come back to me, and I just feel the muscle memory of walking into a room and just suddenly ducking behind the orange, disgusting orange sofa that we used to have. Because I was sort of playing a game with my kaki who had just moved over from Bombay,
Okay.
and she was like my favorite, and like she was like she really looked after me, and we would like constantly play
Is that
in
aunt?
that. Yeah, yeah, my dad's like sister-in-law.
Okay, got you. Okay, cool.
Um, and then we had to move to Pinner because like my like the family just got bigger and like they wanted to move.
Okay, so you're in Pinner right now. You get into a high school that is a bit further out, maybe towards Watford. What was it like traveling quite a distance to go to a school that's slightly out of, what could I say, out of your comfort zone?
Massively out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I went to Merchant Taylors for a bit, which is a private school. A lot of like famous Asians have come out of that school. So Mehdi Hassan, who's like a political journalist, he went to that school. He was in the year above me, and then it was me, and then 2 years below me was Rizwan Ahmed, and like
Yeah.
I was in the same class as Riz's brother, and like he and I, his brother and I were good friends for a bit, and I really like everyone. Everyone always has very different relationships with their school, obviously, but I hated my school so much. It just wasn't for me. Like it just wasn't the environment for me. Like first of all, I kind of there's this thing with like certain immigrant families where they kind of feel like the way the way that you're going to have the opportunities that the dads never had or the mum and dad never had or the uncles never had was like we'll send you to university, you have to go to university because we never got to go to university. And so I felt the pressure because I was the eldest son of like a lot of sisters. I felt the pressure, you have to go to university. And then they wanted me to like do something prestigious at university, so they thought that the best way to set me up for doing something prestigious that was going to earn lots of money for the family and like make back the return on investment of sending me to private school was like to say, they sent me to private school because they were like, do something that's going to set the family up. And I just constantly felt this pressure because I felt this guilt because my parents couldn't really afford to send me to private school, but for some reason it was so important to them that I went.
What were you actually like in the school? Were you like quite academic? Were you quite chatty? Did you, I don't know, rebel a little bit? Like, what was it like in school for you?
If I can be honest with you, I don't think people would have known I existed.
Wow.
I was just very quiet. Like I was always on the periphery. Like I think people thought I was like fine and funny and stuff, but like I just didn't know myself very well. It took me a really long time to know myself. And that's kind of what I get from writing is it's an opportunity to look within, it's an opportunity to reflect, it's an opportunity to interrogate yourself, as well as like interrogate the world. And it's only when I kind of started writing that and exploring who I was that I started to kind of come out my shell. You know, various incidents happened that kind of pushed me further and further into my shell when I was at school. But I was shy. I was really shy. You know, I got the bare minimum done to like have what my parents would consider good grades because I didn't want them to ever feel like they were wasting money on me. Um, but I just hadn't found my passion yet. And then at some point, I discovered rap and comics, and like those were just worlds that I disappeared into. You know, like I disappeared into the world of Shaolin, like the Wu Tang Staten Island world, and I disappeared into the world of like Marvel's New York, and you know.
I think I can see like a little comic book in a frame at the top of your shelf. Am I right? Or
Surrounded by comic
yeah,
paraphernalia in this room, man.
the comics are amazing.
Yeah, so like I think because I've always been a big reader, because my mum always took me to the library every 2 weeks without fail. Um, I've always read, and it was like finding comics and finding rap, and then finding the link between the two, because there's so much like interlinking between, like, Cool Keith and being obsessed with Marvel, and even calling himself Dr. Octagon and stuff like that. Like, that was the stuff that I really loved. That's where I kind of started to find myself, find my voice.
Okay.
And then, like, when I was like 19 years old, I discovered Asian Dub Foundation,
Okay.
and they just blew my mind. They had this song called Free Satpal Ram about this guy who'd been locked up for defending himself in a racist attack, and it just blew my mind. And then when I was at uni, I went to a gig of theirs, and I just was in love. I was in love with this band, and they kind of just brought together all of my influences. And I met the lead singer afterwards, and I told him that I was a writer, and I really loved rap, and I was writing poetry and stuff. And I sent him a bunch of stuff, and he was like, "You're a rapper, you just don't know how to rap." And so he kind of sat with me for weeks and weeks and taught me how to rap, and that kind of like brought me out of my shell. I was never good. But it did something to really help me find my voice and help me find what I wanted to say. And I think he just saw that in me, that like I was just looking for the right mode of expression, and he really unlocked something in me. And yeah, I haven't looked back since. And then around that time, like, I just read White Teeth by Zadie Smith, and like another Northwest London stalwart. And it's strange reading a book that is literary, but all of the characters are talking in mid-90s slang that you used to use. And that's amazing. I just found that amazing. So when I was 14 years old, um, and I was sitting and watching TV with my mum and my sister, and that advert came on for the Buddha of Suburbia, which are like, because I'm just writing something about it at the moment. I've got the DVD here. The Buddha of Suburbia, the advert came on. It was like the first time I'd seen a brown kid on TV, and it just blew my mind that there was a brown kid on TV. And it wasn't Bollywood, it was like a teenager growing up in a crappy London suburb. I'm not saying Brent's crappy, but everywhere feels crappy when you're a teenager. Everywhere you're surrounded by when you're a teenager feels crappy. And I felt like Brent was crappy at the time. And but it definitely looked like the kind of show that I couldn't just sit next to my mum and watch. And it was like a one TV household, and I was like, I need to watch the show. I need to see the show. And then it said based on the novel by Hanif Qureshi. And next time my mum took me to the library, I found it in the library. And I really remember reading the opening lines, like, "My name is Kareem Amir, and I'm an Englishman through and through, almost." And it was that one word, almost, that completely changed my life. It just utterly changed my life, because I was an almost kid. I was always on the outside. I was always on the periphery. Never felt like I fit in anywhere. Felt like I was going to school every day and like performing to whiteness, or performing to white privilege, even though all of the brown kids were surrounded by, there would always come a level where money couldn't buy us whiteness, and then I would go home and I wouldn't feel like I fit in with like all of my homeboys anymore, because like I was going to this school and I just constantly felt on the outside. And then Hanif Qureshi came along and told me that it was okay to be an almost kid, and I just felt like I belonged somewhere. And then I didn't feel that again until I read White Teeth by Zadie Smith, and so those two books just came at the right time in my life. And I think that's part of why, like, when I'm not writing for me as a teenager or me as a 20-year-old. I'm writing for that person who might need to read that book at that time,
Powerful, man. Powerful. It's deep. And from high school, you left. You went to university to study law.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that? Was that something you wanted to do, or again, was it you talking about like the pressure from your family to kind of just? Obviously, it's the same with me as well. Obviously, having Asian parents, go to university, succeed, get a first, go to an amazing uni. My granddad still thinks I'm going to go to Cambridge, kind of thing. So, yeah, what was the thinking behind that? Was that something you wanted to do? Do you ever think you were going to become a lawyer?
No, I don't want to be a lawyer. It was what my dad wanted me to do. I was the first person in our family to go to university, and that means a lot. And like my dad's invested all this money into me going to university. And the thing is, I did the degree because I like to stick at things. I wasn't happy for 3 years, but like those were the 3 years that I was doing what I needed to do to kind of get by my law degree. And I was like being taught by Didar Zaman from the Asian Dove Foundation how to rap. Like I'd sort of sneak off. But also like I lived at home for the first 2 years, and I was basically worked in the Blockbuster Video in Pinner High Street for like 2 years. And yeah, like I would spend the bare minimum amount of time at uni as possible.
Okay. What university did you end up going to?
Queen Mary in East
Okay,
London.
that's in East, isn't it?
Yeah.
Growing up where you grew up, do you think that prepared you in any way, shape, or form for university, or was it like another thing because you were studying something you weren't really interested in? Your heart really kind of wasn't in it, and you didn't really have to adapt that much.
But yeah, no, my heart just wasn't in it. But what happened was because I was commuting between Harrow and Mile End every day, like an hour each way. I just started reading paperbacks. I just started reading lots and lots of paperbacks, and I spent 2 years reading like 2 books a week on that train.
Wow.
And like on my shift at Blockbuster Video, because at Blockbuster Video they clamped the television, so it was facing away from the desk, so you couldn't watch anything. You had to play the trailers video, and it would just drive me crazy. So I'd just be sitting behind the desk reading. And yeah, but reading all those books, that's when I started thinking about trying to write a novel.
Man, so it all played a part. Everything kind of fell into place at the right time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I haven't had the most straightforward life or straightforward career, and I was definitely a very unhappy teenager, but I wouldn't go back and change any of it because all of it kind of made me,
So you're known as a person that kind of has really tried to change things in the public industry for people of color, because obviously it can be a place that is not the most welcoming if you're not like a middle class white person. So when were you first aware that there was that kind of like prejudice or racism, or was it something you experienced yourself, or was that something you had to kind of like come across secondhand?
Oh man, like you end up meeting writers, and they tell you stories, and then stuff happens to you. Like very early on in my career, when I was trying to get my first novel published, like I remember an agent telling me that he didn't feel my characters were authentically Asian enough. I was like, what does that even mean?
What does that even mean? What does he want you to like own a corner shop or something and flip and talk with an accent? Like, what does he want?
Yeah, do you need a jihadi having a
literally like
someone eating a mango? And I hated that. And then another person was like, "Oh, we're already publishing an Indian author this year," and I was like, "I'm from Brent." Also, there can be more than one. And then and all that stuff happens, and you hear about it, and then like years later, stuff like that, like insidious stuff like that is still happening to me. And then I'm still going, well, where are all of the other brown writers? And then I speak to loads and loads of people all the time, and loads of brown writers were like, yeah, we can't find a publishing deal. And then you're like, what? And then you hear that they're still getting the same kind of rejections that you got. Like, because I don't mind if people don't like my writing. That's fine. It's subjective. Like, you may really love Breaking Bad, and I may think it's okay. That's fine. It doesn't make it not a good show.
Yeah.
Like you may really love the books of I may really love Zadie Smith, and you may think that The Autograph Man wasn't that good or what have you. But it's all like it's taste. Do you know what I mean? So like
exactly.
May 2018, I was judging a really big prize, the Folio Prize, and it's a really prestigious thing. Like my face is up on the projection alongside the other two judges, and people are coming up to me and handing me their empty champagne glasses, and I'm like, I was one of the judges of this prize. What's wrong with you? And they were like, "Oh, why are you acting like that's racist?" And I was like, well, "You're not handing your glasses to anyone else." And then like I went to another like literature thing a couple of months later, and the same thing was happening. And I was just like, what is it about me that makes people just like, no shade to people who work in the service industry, like people do what they need to do, but I don't make any automatic assumptions about people.
Because of
Like,
the way they look. Come on, man. What the
yeah,
hell?
automatically assume that like all of the black and brown people are the ones serving you, and then you look around and you're like, oh, it's because there are 4 brown and black people in this room. One of them is a security guard, the other 3 are handing out drinks, and the other one is me. They've just not seen me. They've just seen that.
Yeah, the shade of your skin.
It's not just white people, is it? Like I recognise that being from a Gujarati family from northwest London, I am constantly surrounded by elders who have really horrific attitudes towards Muslim people, towards black people, and it's up to me to combat that, because I can't go out and claim to be doing anti-racism work out there in the world, and like when it's happening in my own yard, and when it's happening at my Diwali function, or it's happening at my like birthday celebration or what have you, and I'm not calling it out then. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really important for us to call that out in our communities, because it does happen.
So you're living in Bristol now, right?
Yeah.
How are you finding that? Do you feel like you miss being in like northwest London in Brent, or do you prefer the fact that like your family and your kids are growing up away from this area?
It's okay. I really like living in Bristol. I can afford to live in Bristol currently, but I miss my family.
Yeah.
I miss being able to walk out of my house and get freshly made tepla in any cafe. I really miss. There's a writer called Zora Neale Hurston, and she once said, "I feel most coloured when thrown against a sharp white background."
Okay.
And that's how I mean, it's funny saying that to you, a brown boy sitting white background, but that's how I feel in Bristol. I feel most coloured when thrown against a sharp white background, and I feel like I relax when I'm back in Brent and I'm just surrounded by brown and black people again, and I'm just yeah, it's not to say that Bristol is white. There's a strong African Caribbean community here. There's a strong like Muslim community here, but it's just a city where it's very multicultural, but it's not very intercultural. Like the cultures don't mix, and it's just very like because it's small, you spend a lot of time in the centre, and you start to realise that not everyone spends a lot of time in the centre.
So, inferring from what you said, basically you're planning to move back to Brent, yeah?
I mean, I've seen the redevelopments around Wembley Park. I don't think I can.
It's crazy, right? It's literally nuts. Like, and yes, yeah, affordable housing. Let's not even get into that, because that's a subject that just makes my blood boil.
Yeah, affordable housing for who?
This new generation of like creatives coming through Northwest London and Brent, there's a lot of people from this part of London that are kind of like making waves as young actors and writers.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because Zadie showed us it was possible, and then I took the baton off Zadie, and then I made it. I helped people like Guy Gunaratne a lot out when he was first starting out, and now it's his turn to shine the light on Brent. I don't know. I think that it's funny, because I think that like when you're from East, you're from East. When you're from South, you're from South. No one says they're from North London because people just go, "Oh, you rich bastard." No one says they're from Northwest London, and no one says they're from West London, really.
Mm.
But like, I feel like Northwest and West London just don't have the same kind of territorial pride that East London and South London have.
I agree. You talk about like taking the baton from Zadie and passing it on. Last year you visited quite a few schools. I know Alperton in specific, where you went to like speak to the next generation and kind of like inspire them. But I wanted to know how that made you feel as a brown boy from the same area, visiting high schools and students where the pupils that look up to you, and use you as an example as someone that they want to become. That must be quite a nice feeling.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the reasons I started writing for teenagers, is because of that opportunity to go into those schools and I just need to make that one contact with that one kid, that one connection with that one kid who's like, you are now proof that I can get to where you are.
Yeah.
If you can get to where you are, I can get. It's a very simple thing. If I can see it, I can hear it. And a lot of those kids in like Northolt, where I've been to talk, or like Alperton or Wembley or Harrow or any of these places, they will see me and they'll go, I can be you. And that's enough, you know? So I really love it. I really love coming back. When I came back to do a school in Alperton, like I came back like 2 hours early, and it was like some of the worst rain that I'd ever seen. But I walked the length of Ealing Road and back just to soak it all in, and I loved it. I miss it, man. I miss Wembley. I miss my family.
How often do you come back?
Yeah, like, I mean, I'll go and see my dad, who still lives there, my sister, who still lives there, and I try and bring my kids back as much as possible. But it was like early March. I had one weekend to go and see my sisters and take my kids to see my sisters.
Yeah.
And I was looking at my diary and I was like, God, after this weekend, every single weekend I'm away and I'm away. I'm touring, I'm like traveling, I'm like going here. It's like, it's a lot. I'm just feeling really overwhelmed. So I texted my sisters. I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm feeling lazy. I just need to be at home this weekend. And they were like, come on, bro. Come on, what's wrong with you? Like, the girls need to see us and stuff. I was like, no, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to come. And then lockdown happened. I don't know when I can go home. All of that work got cancelled anyway.
Mm.
I don't know when I'm going to be able to see my family.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to come back to Ealing Road and like go searching for the best aloo paratha in town.
The best.
And I don't have any work to kind of make me feel overwhelmed, you know. So like, lockdown is a strange thing. It makes you realize what you need and what you don't need.
100.
The thing is, I can make aloo paratha, and I can Zoom my sisters, and all the rest of it. But it's just that feeling that you get when you're there that counts.
100.
Because it's home, isn't it? For me, that's home.
Mm.
My home is here. You're like, this is my home, but that's home. You know?
That's your house. That's your home.
Yeah, there's like this funny, like that old rap adage of it's not where you're from, it's where you're at.
Mm.
But actually, it's where you're from. Because the thing is, where you're at means that every time you go back to where you're from, you look at it with fresh eyes. Because when I was a teenager, I couldn't wait to get out.
Exactly.
I could not wait to like move to Brick Lane and just live opposite 93 Feet East and just be there every single night. When I lived in Brixton, I was like, why would anyone live anywhere other than South London? When I moved to Finsbury Park, I was like, why would anyone live anywhere other than North London? And then when I moved to Bristol, I was like, oh, actually, I can afford to live, and I'm not like so deep into my overdraft that the wolves are at the door, you know. But every time I go back to Brent, I look at it with new eyes, or I look at it with old eyes. I look at it with like I just look at it and I see things I didn't appreciate. That's why it's home, you know, because it's where I'm from.
Making me emotional, bro. I feel the same, you know. I feel like working in East London, obviously it's meant to be the cool place. I can't wait to get back on the Metropolitan line back home. Honestly, I cannot wait. Literally, I go there and I'm like, okay, it's amazing. I have a job I really enjoy. I do stuff that I enjoy and it's fantastic. But, you know, I just literally cannot wait to go to Liverpool Street, get on the train, get back into my area, you know, go past, you know, Dollis Hill, Neasden, Wembley Park, and just get out of the tube station, see the stadium, see all these schools around me, see all these people, and I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I'm happy now, man. Honestly. What would your advice be to budding authors or people who kind of want to follow in your footsteps?
My advice to writers is to read a lot. Read the books you love by the authors you love, but also read stuff that you wouldn't necessarily be into. Because the thing that you need to really work on is what your voice is and what do you want to say. Like if a novel is you interrogating something, you asking a big question of the world, like you need to know what your voice is, how your voice kind of fits into all of that. And the other thing with writing is it's very easy in the content driven world to write a piece, file it 5 minutes later, and then it'd be online within 10 minutes. Yeah. And that's not when the best writing gets done. The best writing takes time. The best writing is like slow cooked nihari or something, you know, like the best writing is like biryani. Biryani, can't make biryani in 10 minutes. Biryani is like a 4-hour process if you want proper, decent, good, delicious biryani. You know, the best curries are the ones that you have as leftovers because the spices have just been doing their business in the fridge overnight. So just take your time. It's the same with writing. Take your time. The other thing is just write the book that you want to write. Don't worry about what you think other people want to read. No one knows what people want to read. Do you think when 50 Shades of Grey came out as a bestseller, publishers were like, well, we knew this strange book about BDSM that started off as fan fiction about Twilight would be an international bestseller and have 3 films and a spin-off book? No one knew that. So just write the book that you want to write.
Bro, we have this, to round it off, we have this little segment where we kind of like ask our guests to suggest a book, a TV show or a movie or like some sort of digital app that they've been using or that means quite a lot to them. So I don't know if you have a chance to think about it, but is there a book like you've been reading at the moment or something you always go back to?
So I'm reading a book at the moment. It's a non-fiction book called Notes from the Apocalypse by Mark O'Connell. And it's basically him investigating people who are preparing for the end of the world. It's kind of weird to read it in this time now, but he's like spends time with like all these tech billionaires who are basically buying up huge plots of land in New Zealand because that's where they're going to go when the apocalypse happens. He attends this conference on colonizing Mars. He meets all these people who are basically buying and selling Cold War bunkers. It's mad. It's a mad book, but it's all about like people's fear of death. What was the other thing? A TV show?
Like a movie or a TV show?
So I got Disney Plus for my kids, but the fun thing about Disney Plus is I get to rewatch all of the 90s Spider-Man and Uncanny X-Men cartoons I used to watch. I've also been really, really loving the show that I never watched at the time, but it's called Wild Wild Country. It's like this documentary on Netflix about this this guru called Osho who had this sort of strange like Hindu sex cult thing, and they basically end up starting up an ashram in the middle of nowhere in America, and how that kind of affects the local community. It's mad. It's
sounds very, very interesting. And the final thing is like an app.
So here are 3 apps to not use: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I've been the only app I've really been using apart from social media apps is my new interval timer.
You're exercising, yeah?
Exercising because like I don't have a gym, like I don't have the clock on a gym that I can use.
Of course, yeah. I think we're going to round it off now. I know you've got stuff to do, but it's been an amazing conversation. Getting to know you, how this wonderful area that we live in or you used to live in but have ties with still has affected you and, you know, shaped you into the cool dude you are today. How can people get in touch with you or contact you?
Just buy my books from a bookshop or get them out of a library. That's about as much contact as I want from anyone because I am an awkward person. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram,
Cool.
more than I should. So yeah, find me there.
Yeah, that has been that. Brent locked in. Thank you very much for joining us on the second episode. My name is Moeed Majeed. You can follow me at Moeed Majeed on most things. You can follow London Borough of Culture at LBOC 2020. And thank you very much, Nikesh, for joining us, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.